It seemed like a dream come true for Rachel Zegler, starring as the lead in Disney's live-action remake of Snow White, poised to become the next big name in Hollywood. Yet, in the blink of an eye, her Cinderella story crumbled. A series of controversial statements, emotional social media posts, and lackluster box office numbers turned her once promising moment into a digital firestorm. How did things spiral so quickly? The answer lies in a perfect storm of missteps, timing, and one viral meltdown that changed everything. Rachel's downfall didn't creep in quietly, it arrived with a bang. On a seemingly ordinary evening, she recorded a video in what appeared to be her bedroom. Eyes glistening with frustration, she insisted she wasn't ungrateful. Yet the tone felt off to many viewers. In her attempt to push back against critics and online hate, she came across as dismissive, even self-absorbed. TikTokers wasted no time chopping her monologue into comedic stitches and ironic dubs. Over on X, formerly Twitter, a storm of quote tweets followed, dissecting each phrase in real time. But here's the real twist. That video was just the final straw. For months, tensions had been simmering. Early rumors pointed to friction on set. Others hinted that Disney executives worried about her outspoken nature. By the time she finally addressed her critics head-on, the backlash was already too big to contain. Rather than apologizing or offering a nuanced explanation, she took a defiant stance. And that only fueled the digital bonfire. From the outside, Snow White looked like an obvious blockbuster. Disney sunk a jaw-dropping budget into the production, cast high-profile names, and touted a modern retelling of its revered 1937 classic. Confidence was sky-high internally. Industry insiders expected a massive opening weekend. But the reality was a cold slap in the face. The film debuted to a mere $45 million domestically, which left Hollywood observers reeling. For context, The Little Mermaid remake, plagued by its own controversies, managed to open near $95 million in its first weekend. So, how did Snow White tumble so low? Critics, fans, and box office analysts alike pointed their fingers at a swirl of issues. Muddled marketing, divisive updates to the classic story, and an overarching PR nightmare centered on Rachel herself. It wasn't just that people disliked the film, many actively avoided it, unwilling to support a project so deeply tangled in online drama. A deeper look into Rachel's past interviews reveals comments that struck a nerve with longtime Disney followers. She dismissed the 1937 Snow White as weird and creepy, claiming the original prince character was basically a stalker. While some modern viewers might see her perspective, many lifelong fans felt she spat on a cornerstone of Disney's legacy. After all, this was the studio's very first animated feature, a film that laid the groundwork for everything Disney built afterward. In her defense, Rachel stressed she wanted a more independent, self-sufficient Snow White, someone who doesn't simply wait for a prince to rescue her. But a large segment of the audience felt that her approach crossed the line from modernizing a fairy tale to outright disrespecting it. Others argued that you can champion a strong female lead without trashing the original story. Still, Rachel's tone in interviews grew more combative over time, and instead of a thoughtful discussion on evolving social values, fans perceived condescension. In Hollywood, stars typically band together when controversy hits. Public shows of support, from tweets to interviews, often help quell fan outrage. This time, though, Rachel stood entirely alone. Whether out of caution or personal disagreements, co-stars and directors kept quiet, letting her weather the storm by herself. Even more telling was the palpable tension between Rachel and Gal Gadot, who played the evil queen. At the Oscars, the two presented an award side by side, but their chemistry was ice cold. Clips of their stiff body language and forced smiles made the rounds on social media. Rumor has it, Gal was privately frustrated that Snow White had turned into a fiasco, overshadowing her own role. Disney's marketing team reportedly tried to pivot focus toward Gal's star power, but by then, the negative conversation around Rachel had gained unstoppable momentum. Meanwhile, inside Disney's corridors, hushed conversations questioned the viability of the film's marketing. Should they keep pushing Rachel's face to the forefront, or was it safer to lean on the brand's nostalgia? By the second week of release, major theater chains were shifting Snow White to smaller screens and less favorable showtimes, intensifying the film's downtrend. Rachel's meteoric rise was, at one point, the talk of Tinseltown. After a breakthrough performance in West Side Story, she was hailed as a fresh talent who'd usher in the next generation of Hollywood stardom. Critics lauded her vocal chops, her acting range, and her youthful energy. qualities that supposedly made her an ideal Disney princess. But the tide turned with astonishing speed. Industry executives live and breathe public perception, and any star generating more negative headlines than glowing reviews can become a risky bet. According to whispers from studio insiders, Rachel's name started dropping off certain wish lists for upcoming roles. Casting directors who once courted her scrambled to gauge whether she'd bring unwanted baggage to new projects. In a social media age where fan sentiment can tank a film's prospects, that's a risk not many are willing to take. The stark contrast is striking. In a flash, Rachel went from darling newcomer to potential liability. And it raises a broader question about how celebrities handle public missteps in the digital era. Some pivot successfully, offering self-reflection or an apologetic tone that audiences can embrace. Others double down and alienate viewers beyond repair. For now, Rachel hovers somewhere in the middle, unapologetic enough to inflame critics, yet lacking a strong enough support system to keep fans on her side. Disney is more than a studio. It's an empire built on nostalgia. From classic fairy tale films to theme parks that promise you can feel like a kid again, Disney trades in generational memories. Tampering with that legacy is always high risk. The original Snow White wasn't just the first animated feature from Walt Disney, it was an unprecedented phenomenon that shaped the future of animation worldwide. So when word got out that the new Snow White would drastically deviate from the original's romance and princess-prince dynamic, older fans bristled. Rachel's public comments about not caring for the 1937 plot only piled on the resentment. Some critics argue that Disney could have navigated this shift more gracefully, updated the story to empower Snow White while still honoring the classic's historical significance. But the messaging got muddled, especially once it became wrapped up in Rachel's personal controversies. From a corporate standpoint, the real worry is how this fiasco impacts their bottom line. An underperforming film is one issue, but negative buzz on this scale can contaminate merchandising, theme park tie-ins, and future spin-offs. Simply put, the fiasco around Snow White isn't just another flop, it's a blemish on the Disney brand that might linger longer than anyone anticipated. For Rachel, the question becomes, how do you salvage a career when you've become the face of a mega-budget failure? Hollywood loves a comeback, but it also demands some level of humility, or at least a strategic pivot. So far, Rachel has shown little interest in softening her stance. She's posted a few more social media updates, some laced with indignation, others attempting to defend her artistry. None have truly quelled the backlash. Her team may be brainstorming a more measured approach, a heartfelt interview with a prominent journalist, or a deeply personal statement acknowledging the mistakes. Even a cameo in a beloved franchise can sometimes help audiences warm up again, if done right. Yet every day that passes without a meaningful reset allows critics to keep piling on. Ultimately, a star's longevity depends on whether audiences want to see them on screen. If the public's reaction is consistently negative, studios will look elsewhere, no matter how talented that actor might be. Rachel's path to redemption will likely require stepping back from the spotlight, reflecting on what went wrong, and re-emerging with a tone that feels genuine, not defiant. Whether she's willing to do that remains to be seen. The rumor mill hasn't slowed. Some insiders claim Disney is considering re-editing or limiting special features on the Snow White home release to reduce Rachel's prominence. Others suggest that certain talk show invitations were quietly rescinded after producers worried Rachel might spark further controversy on air. Meanwhile, fans on social media swap wild theories, from claims that Disney sabotaged its own film for insurance purposes, highly unlikely, to speculation that the drama might actually fuel interest when it hits streaming. In the midst of all this chaos, the one fact that remains is the film's dismal box office showing. No amount of rumor or speculation changes the numbers. Many blame Rachel's polarizing presence and outspoken remarks as the reason Snow White failed to capture the hearts of a new generation. Others say the film itself was flawed from the beginning, a misguided attempt to modernize a timeless fairy tale without a clear vision. Whichever side you land on, it's clear the controversy hasn't died down. If anything, it continues to ignite more questions about the future of Disney remakes and the unpredictable nature of internet culture. Snow White was supposed to be the crown jewel of Disney's live-action lineup, a legacy-building role for Rachel Zegler, and a fresh take on a cherished classic. Instead, it became a lesson in how social media, shifting fan expectations, and tone-deaf publicity can collide to shatter even the biggest Hollywood dreams. While one disappointing movie doesn't always spell doom, this fiasco highlights a modern truth. Public opinion carries more weight than ever, and the internet can turn a star into a villain overnight. Is this the end of Rachel's journey, or the beginning of a redemption story that will someday define her career? Hollywood has seen bigger scandals fade away after a timely apology or a surprising box office hit. Rachel's next moves, whether apologies, new roles, or a total rebrand, will determine whether she remains a cautionary tale or rebounds as an unlikely comeback queen. In the meantime, Disney is left questioning how one of its most iconic fairy tales fell so far from happily ever after. And for audiences worldwide, it's a reminder that the line between beloved princess and public enemy can be far thinner than we ever imagined.